This is Session Update, and I am Shannon Loehrke. With me today to talk about the governor's bonding proposal is Commissioner Myron Frans. Welcome, Commissioner.
Glad to be here. Thank you, Shannon.
So tell me, how much money can the state borrow and still remain within guidelines?
We have several guidelines that we follow, and there's a couple of them that talk about a percentage of the total state personal income, which is approaching $300 billion in another couple of years. So it's a certain percentage of that. So right now we estimate that we could bond up to $3.5 billion in this session and still be within the guidelines that we have. So clearly our $1.4 billion request is way below the $3.5 billion, which is the maximum we could ask for at this time.
So why won't the governor ask for more?
Well, one of the reasons we sort of broke the $1 billion threshold, as you may recall, the $1 billion limit goes way back to 1998 in Governor Carlson's term, where they came up with this $1 billion limit. It was sort of based on a 10% of the general fund. Well, if you had 10% of the general fund today, it'd be $2 billion. So one of the things we wanted to do was to sort of get away from that mythical limit of $1 billion. So we went to $1.4 billion. We had $3.7 billion in requests, many great requests, but we narrowed it down to $1.4 billion. And we certainly wouldn't be opposed to going a little bit higher, but we just felt like this was a responsible way to go forward. And we also have to make sure that we can afford the debt capacity, because we have to pay for the debt as well. And we think this is a responsible way to go forward.
So water quality issues are high on the governor's priority list. What spurred him to take this on as a priority?
Well, he really became interested last year, as you may recall. One of the things, a number of things came to be, and that was his awareness of the quality of water throughout the state, both in terms of the streams and the underground water tributaries, but also in wastewater treatment and public drinking water around the state. The more he became aware of the lack of quality and the contamination issues, the more he realized this was something that was important to all Minnesotans. I mean, we have this reputation of 10,000 lakes, right? Well, we want those lakes to be clean, and most of the water that we receive, it comes from the Minnesota watershed. So we're responsible for our water and the quality of that water, and he's taken that very seriously, and he wants to make sure that we make significant progress in enhancing and protecting our water quality throughout the state.
Do you know the specifics of what will be done with the money and how it will be allocated?
There are a number of ways that this is going to happen. So one of the things we do is we issue grants to local units of government, and we do that by providing grants and loans, so they can qualify for really low interest loans and sometimes grants to help them with their water treatment facility or their drinking water. So it'll be distributed through that program, through the PFA, and that PFA program has been around for many years. And one of the things that they do is they try to make sure that these grants and these loans get distributed all around the state. And it's a revolving loan program. So as some loans go out, some get repaid, and they can continue to process this. So that's one way. Another way that we'll be doing it is to make sure that individual cities have sometimes really big projects. For example, some regional centers have huge water treatment facilities and need major help, so we can be available in some of those areas as well. So the goal is really to make sure that the entire state, the metro region needs some help, but throughout the state we really spread the money around in a way that everyone can benefit from it.
So another important issue has been rail safety. It's become an issue of increasing concern lately. What are some things the governor would like to do to address those concerns?
Well, in short, to improve safety. I mean, as you know, with a vast increase in the amount of train activity, especially with the Bakken oil from North Dakota, as that oil moves through the state of Minnesota, primarily on rail, it's increased the traffic dramatically. And so one of the things we want to do is not only increase the rail crossings where the highways and roads cross the rail. That's a really important area. We want to do some grade separations to make that a little bit safer, and those are very expensive. The railroad pays for some of it, but not all of it. But also, we simply want to make sure that we're prepared for that potential catastrophe. And let's hope not, but if something were to happen with some delicate materials and dangerous materials, we'd want to be able to respond. One of the things the governor's asked for is more training at Camp Ripley to provide training facilities so that we can train our first responders about how to respond to a trail derailment. So there's a real concern to make sure that we provide train safety throughout the state. Once again, these these trains and tracks go all over the place. They come, underneath Target Stadium for the Twins, and so he's very concerned about that and has been pushing this a lot. We also, in addition to doing some bonding for rail safety trade separation or grade separations, we also want the railroads to pay for some of these safety things as well. They should be contributing to the safety of our citizens. So rail safety is something that I think is really critical as we go forward, because this could happen at any time. And derailments happen all the time, and we just have to be prepared both to respond to it, but to try to prevent it, and also to make sure that our roads are safe intersecting with the railroads.
Higher education typically receives 1/3 of a bonding request, and this time it's only 25%. Why isn't the governor asking more for higher education?
Well, I think one of the reasons that education got a lot of money for both the University of Minnesota system and the MNSCU, Minnesota State Colleges University system. We put $153 million in each one of those areas. But I think one of the reasons it may be a little bit smaller percentage is because we put so much money this year into asset preservation. The governor put about 1/3 of the bonding bill into asset preservation, where you take care of buildings and roofs and different kinds of things. We've been really concerned with the lack of keeping pace of taking care of the footprint that we have. And, obviously we've talked about the transportation area, roads and bridges and transit, but also if you just look at the colleges and universities, between the University of Minnesota and MNSCU and the state of Minnesota, we have millions of square feet of office space that we need to maintain, and we just have not kept up. So the governor's made a real concerted effort to put more money into the University of Minnesota system, the MNSCU system, and the state of Minnesota asset preservation system to fix what we have. We don't always plan for new buildings. So for example, this beautiful building here, one of the things that's going to happen over time, it's going to need some maintenance. And so if you don't plan for deferred maintenance, and in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you're going to have a major roof repair. I mean, that's just the way buildings are, especially in Minnesota. Of course, look at the Capitol. So we need to be more diligent and more methodical in planning for asset preservation. But anyway, that's one of the reasons I think the percentage maybe for education went down some, was because there was a larger percentage put into asset preservation and water also.
Right.
Water quality was another area that took some more percentage out of the bonding bill.
So last week, Senator Metzen spoke of allocating money for amateur sports arenas. Is that something that the governor would consider?
Yes, I think I really want to speak to Senator Metzen. What a great senator, and I had a chance to just see him last week, and I am so I love the way he has been supportive of the Mighty Ducks throughout his career, and he still got me off to the side and grabbed me by the lapel and made the case for Mighty Ducks. We just didn't find a way to fit it in, and that's part of the process for the bonding bill. It is a competition. As I mentioned, $3.7 billion in requests, and we picked 1.4. So there are a lot of things that are right on that line, and the Mighty Ducks is certainly one of those. And I think we'll certainly talk more with Senator Metzen and other folks that support that, but we would love to be able to see that be part of the program. But as I mentioned to the Senate Capital Bonding Committee the other day, one of the best ways to improve the governor's bonding bill is to make it bigger. And certainly that would be one way to accommodate Senator Metzen's program. But we respect Senator Metzen greatly, and we hope we can accommodate that going forward.
So finally, the budget forecast is due out this Friday. How will that affect the governor's bonding proposals?
The forecast on the 26th of February is going to really help us. We'll know how much money we have to spend or not spend. I can't give away what the number is that we'll have this session and also for the next biennium. So generally, the amount of money we spend on financing the bonding bill is a small enough amount it can usually get fit in no matter what the result is. So this won't affect in great amount the bonding bill itself, because we'll have sufficient dollars more than likely to pay for supporting the bonding bill. Actually, what happens, I think, is if the forecast comes in at all less than what we expect, it really enhances the need to do a big bonding bill. I mean, the $1.4 billion bonding bill, if our numbers come in any lower for the forecast, should be expanded, because one of the things you want to do if there's any potential slowdown, and I'm not saying there is, but if there is, you want to actually spend more, especially in capital projects. So I think it enhances the ability of a $1.4 billion bonding bill, and we'll just see how that happens.
Well, thank you, Commissioner, for stopping by today. It was really informative and a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you very much.